listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah, famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Get on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
There's no human being I'd rather be talking to on the planet right now than Melanie Newman. Why are you laughing, Jemai Webster? Why are you laughing?
He's laughing because I'm laughing.
That's everybody. That's his line.
That's not,
He's the favorite. We know this.
No.
I'm going to steal that one day from you.
Yeah, no, it's copyrighted.
Do it every post-game interview.
It's TM. It's TM. Melanie, how are you?
We're doing great. Hot. We're good.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's like I was doing a podcast with Lucas Giolito the other day, and the phone started overheating when we were filming it.
I believe it.
And I'm like, we're gonna thank it. We're gonna be like, oh man, I really miss those days when the phone were overheating, right? So anyway, happy opening day here at Camden Yards.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
I want you, if you could, please. I remember the first time Jason Mastrodonato wrote a story about you, right? Correct?
Yep.
In Salem,
Virginia, not Mass.
No, not Mass. No, about your budding broadcasting career. If you can, before I get into sort of like I love talking about broadcasting and where it's going and everything. But please tell your story. Tell your story about how you fell in love with baseball. And I know you've told this a bunch of times, but please tell us again how you fell in love with baseball, why you wanted to become a broadcaster, and why you dove headfirst into actually being a broadcaster.
I think it's different than a lot of stories you hear because so many talk about growing up listening to broadcasters and how that resonated with them and they wanted to follow it. And I really honestly do think it's because there wasn't another female, that it just never entered my brain space that this was something that I could do, at least in this capacity. And then as for baseball itself, it was also just kind of a fluke. I didn't know until I was so much older that my dad quit following with the '94 strike. So growing up in the South, football was a really big part, obviously, of the culture and the climate. But I kind of led myself to baseball. And I was this hard-headed girl because I lived in Atlanta in the peak of the 90s Braves, but I was diehard for the Red Sox. And this would be the year to break the curse. And all of my family from New England were consequentially following the Braves because they weren't buying into it, and they were right. But it was such a part of it. And because of the Braves, everybody played baseball. And so I was 10 minutes from East Cobb. It's a year-round complex. It's one of the biggest. And I got to see so many faces before they became names. And luckily for me, my dad never discouraged that. Like even with, his feelings towards it, he was just happy that I wanted to know the game. I never played softball. I do not have an athletic bone in my body, but I loved the intricacies, and I love that it was with you every day. It breathes with you, it lives with you, it dies with you. And so that followed me into high school. I got to travel with the team, and that's where I learned how to keep a book. And by the time I got into college, I had been writing for years. And the university had 2 separate departments for writing and broadcasting, and I literally had an advisor who just said, I think we need to try broadcasting. And I'm deeply introverted, which no one believes me to this day. I still am introverted.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I do not believe you, but I will take your word for it.
So it was kind of this step forward in faith, just because they're professionals, they've been here, they obviously know something. And they got me involved in play calling our Division I volleyball program. I got involved in our baseball and softball, and was just in an environment that allowed me to be a part of things.
I'm not scared.
That went on from, graduating and tiptoeing around independent ball, trying to figure out what that was all about, and quit middle of the season and ended up in Mobile, Alabama, where Andy Green was the skipper and Archie Bradley was this budding ace of the rotation trying to figure things out. And I spent 3 years there, and I got really lucky that a dear friend of mine, Justin Baker, wanted me to be on air, and so he brought me into the booth with him and faced a lot of flack for doing that.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And he didn't care. He wanted me to learn. I had Bob Rathbun, the same thing. He was like, baseball is your sport. I know you want to be marketable and do everything, but baseball is where you need to be. And the 2 of them just nurtured that so much for me, despite of everything else. And it really wasn't until my next stop in Frisco, Texas, where the headlines start to come out. You know, women are in this space and women are doing this. And it was that first moment of kind of taking my head out of the sand and going, oh, there aren't many of us, just because we never talked about it. You know, that, oh, you're the only one. It's just, you don't talk about it. And I think that was kind of nice in itself, to just, to my knowledge, exist a normal life. I just happen to be a female. So from Frisco to Salem, and that was another, everything is just always these spur of the moment situations. It was 2 weeks into spring training. I found out I wasn't being brought back to Texas, and the guy in Salem had just accepted that job and then decided to leave for a different one. And I immediately called and I said, look, I go to spring training. I'll give you coverage for free. I'll do whatever you want to do if I can come work here. And Alan Lawrence is a fantastic GM. Never once brought gender into the picture. He had my back the whole time. And that was really the first step forward, where I felt like I belonged. I felt like I could do this for a long time. The pieces really actually started to
Well, that's
come
a
together.
big thing about it, is that, you know, confidence. Like you said, you know, it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to really believe that you can do it. I mean, I just talked to a pitcher, Justin Slayton of the Red Sox, who was a Rule 5 guy last year. And he said, I had an imposter syndrome. Like, I'll ask, I mean, you were a major league pitcher. He's doing really, really well. You're doing really, really well coming up.
Yeah.
But there must have been that moment where you said, I can do this. I have my dream, and I'm good enough. You know, it's like the old saying, I'm good enough.
Well, and I wasn't even like, okay, I'm good enough to go to the big leagues, but I was like, I'm good enough to be here in Salem and enjoying it. And now I understand and appreciate why some minor league broadcasters are lifers for their team. And then it was just this serendipitous timing that as soon as I was happy where my feet were and I was like, this is where I can be, is when, after 13 interviews in my career, one finally stuck with Baltimore. But yeah.
So we all have, well, not all of us, but I had a moment in my junior year of high school where a teacher complimented me on my writing, right? And all of a sudden, this kid who couldn't latch on to anything, oh, someone complimented me. Maybe I can do this. And you had already named a couple names that are important, but was there something someone said along the way that sort of stuck with you, that sort of was that aha moment?
You know, I still think I struggle finding that, because this.
Well, let's be that, right? Okay, you are great.
Thank you. This industry is so tumultuous, and I know you know that. So there's a lot of moments of like, I don't know, and you do need that core that is going to stick by you and push you and keep reminding you to keep going. And they're also going to be honest. You know, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time, and I think that's fair. So like, two of my best friends are Danny Wexelman and Jessica Kleinschmidt, and they're New York and Oakland. But we talk like every 5 minutes of the day. And so having them in the same field so they get it has been a really big help to me. My dad was always really good about that as well, and just reinforcing that. But I think at the end of the day, you have to do it for yourself. Like, anytime, I will say this, after the spring breakout game this year, having Susan Waldman text me, and we talk, but for her to say, you're crushing it, this is such a great game, like, just bury me right there. Because for her to say that, her words have more weight than probably anybody else's. And I remember my debut here, and she played some stuff in front of Aaron Boone, and it was the same thing. He's like, she's good. Like, I really like her. And he didn't know, you know, that I knew her. He had no obligation to say that. But having those kind of moments just mean a lot. And likewise, having players that I was in the minors with come up and, you know, tell me that they watch my work and how proud they are. And I don't do this to put me in the spotlight. I do it to put them in the spotlight. So it goes that extra distance when they kind of have that kinship.
Do you want to talk about the evolution of broadcasting, because I like talking about it. But before that, and I think that it's so. Tell me if you got to go. Right?
I have 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
We can't always pick this up too. Like.
Yeah. So, but I have met more and more and more young women who are trying to aspire to be you, to aspire to be Susan Waldman, trying to aspire. What advice would you give them? And I know that advice that you would give broadcasters, which is another thing, but also the advice that you would give a young woman coming up in this industry.
I think it's so tricky with this new generation because it just looks like you show up and you're pretty and that's it. And it's gritty and it's hard and it is working for free sometimes. I mean, like my car has 300,000 miles on it for a reason because it was a lot of chances and just saying yes and kind of jumping in blindly. But you've got to be willing to do the grunt work and understand that you have to work on stuff every single day. And honestly, especially as a woman, because I can say the same thing and get questioned or have people, well, why would she say something like that? And I've literally been in the room with a man say word for word what I said. It's like, that's a great point. And you can't live with that. You just have to take it and go, okay, but I still made a great point at the end of the day and find a way to build off of that. You have got to look past how pretty social media makes everything look and be willing to put in the time. We don't get to just wake up and be here.
Last thing, evolution of broadcasting. You can be as quick as you want. I know you got to get going, but how has it changed even in the last few years?
It's so fast now, man. Baseball was, and you know this, that storytelling, like the perfect boat for it. And now it's like you're doing elevator pitches to get these stories out because the clock has sped up the game so much, and we didn't notice it, I think, initially, but we do now. So being concise and really, really picking spots to tell those stories because they're still so important to the game. I think that's the biggest change in it. And everybody has access everywhere now, and the players have the ability to also have a voice a little more than they ever have in the past, but it's still our job to try to cover all the plays and all the stuff that's off the field as well.
Well, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.